Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Architects, mark your calendars for the Entre Architect Community Annual Meeting. It's the business conference for small firm architects. From October 23rd to the 25th, join us in Nashville, Tennessee, for an event dedicated to small firm entrepreneur architects like you. Experience inspiring keynotes, interactive workshops, and unparalleled networking opportunities. This is your chance to learn, share, and grow with peers who understand your journey. It's a unique conference, unlike any of the others. If you're a small firm architect business owner, this event is for you. Secure your spot today at smallfirmconference.com. Don't miss out. Join us in Nashville and prepare your firm to thrive in 2025. My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to Entre Architect Podcast, where Each week, I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. Today, we're joined by Kimberley Healy, the owner and founder of Brainstorming the Castle. Kim specializes in helping architects, interior designers, and brands in the A&D industry define their voice and distill their messaging. She employs a personalized approach to offer a thoughtful, fresh take on brand voice that results in a clearer, more articulate, and easily repurposed messaging that remains consistent, effective, and impactful. Kimberley Healy, welcome to Entre Architect Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I've really been looking forward to this.
Oh, I'm excited about this. I love what you do. I love you. I love your personality. I'm excited about this conversation. We're going to talk about brands and brand voice, specifically brand voice, which if you don't know what brand voice is, stick around because we're going to dive deep into it. But before we do that, Kim, I want to know more about you. I want to know your origin story. When did you discover your passion for what you do, and who or what inspired you to get started?
I love this question. It's one of my favorite parts of every episode because I am a storyteller. That is my job, if you want to put it really simply. And brands hire me to tell their story, but I could listen to people tell their origin stories all day. So I come from an entrepreneurial family. My parents had a trucking and storage container and later office trailer company. They started in the 70s before, everyone was using storage containers.
Yeah.
My dad had a real vision for it. And he and my mother, they started it from one truck. And so we grew up in a household where the home phone was also the business phone. And so, we would always answer, "Hello, who's calling, please?" Because you never knew. Was it going to be your grandmother or was it going to be, somebody calling from a job site?
Where were you? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up on Long Island. So I grew up on the South Shore of Long Island, for those who are familiar. And we were about 45 minutes outside of Manhattan. So I saw my parents, I saw the commitment that it took to be an entrepreneur, and I saw the passion that I really identified with. And both of my parents are in different ways very innately storytellers. And my dad can really capture an audience, and my mother is a fantastic writer. They both get it. And they built this business that I learned so much about branding before I even knew what was happening with it. You know what I mean? They had these really innovative business cards, because one of the big things with storage containers is the confusion that people think they say they really want a dumpster, but they call for a storage container. And so they made these business cards that literally opened up like the two doors of the storage container, and then all of the information was on the inside. So they did things like that, and they had an ad in the Yellow Book, and they had these great stickers that were like very clear with all the information on the actual units, so that if you were driving by a job site, you could pull over and write down the number. And, my dad had t-shirts made that all the kids in my school wore.
Did that creativity come from your dad or your mom?
Both of them. It was very, they really played off each other. And I think that was just something that I didn't even notice it while it was happening, but my mother was the one who was tracking it. So my dad was very like, yeah, let's do it. Like, had the idea, like, execute. And then my mother would, every single time she got a phone call, she said, "And how did you hear about us?"
Yeah.
She wanted to make sure that there was a return on that investment. And so, as a kid, I'm the youngest of three. I'm younger than my older sisters by 4 and 6 years. And so I was with her a lot. And I went to work with her. And so I would be sitting next to her making, paperclip chain necklaces, and later doing filing for her, stuffing invoice envelopes, all the things, and hearing the stories of the people that they were working with. My dad is a very natural relationship marketer. And so when he would start working with someone, he wanted to know, what is the story here? What is your business doing? How can I connect you with other people? He is constantly making connections still, even after they sold the business. And so that was the environment that I grew up in. And we're big readers. My mother has always been a huge reader. And so stories and storytelling have always been, a part of our home as well. And so I started writing at an early age. And over the years, I used to try to write fiction. And Mark, it was so bad. It was so bad. I much preferred hearing people's stories and telling their stories. So I really naturally found my way to creative nonfiction, if you will.
How did you end up where you are now from that entrepreneurial family?
So I went to college at Loyola in Maryland, and my mother was like, "You're going to go to school." And she was sending us the Sunday Times, like all the job listings, while we were still in school. And so my first job out of college, I was actually in shop development. In that job, I was exposed to the D&D building. I would later work for that building, and I didn't know, but it was shop development, store planning. And so my department was in charge of creating the drawings and then ordering the tea stands and the frames and the tables and the risers and the mannequins. So I was very good at the project management side of things, but my creative side was not fulfilled. I'm pretty equally right and left brained. And so many of my jobs early in my career were very logistical, because I thought that's what a job needed to be. And then I would do my creative pursuits on the side. And so in this role, I was done with my work, and I was creating an internal newsletter and a magazine and just handing it out to people. And then I was just popping into different departments. And I had an interior architect who took me under his wing, and he would, take me to do showroom planning with him, or he would take me to the D&D building. I'll never forget the first time we spec'd a Maya Romanoff beaded wall covering, which they still make, I believe, for, I think it was an Anne Klein shop and shop. And I was like, you get to do this this is part of your job every day. You get to look at these materials and make these plans. And, I was like, AutoCAD, I want to learn AutoCAD.
How did you end up at the D&D building? Was that just a happenstance, or was that an interest of yours?
So working in New York, you've got the D&D building, you've got 200 Lex. And if you're working in any sort of design, you're probably going to hit them up. And of course, there are other buildings as well and independent showrooms. But
can you, for anybody who doesn't understand what those buildings are, what the D&D building is, can you just quickly explain what those buildings are for?
So those are buildings. All their floors are trade showrooms. So the D&D building is 18 floors, 130 or so showrooms, very high end. Some of them are multi-line showrooms, and they have any product you could possibly need. There's bath showrooms, there's lighting showrooms, there's fabrics and furniture. And it's just people really who are passionate about and dedicated to serving the trade.
If you ever visit New York City, visit the D&D building as an architect or a designer. To make that a point, because it's an experience. It is really fun to walk through. You have to make an appointment, so make sure you make an appointment.
And they're very welcoming. Really, when you go in there as a member of the trade, they just know exactly what you need. And so it can really save a lot of time, as a designer. So I didn't go straight from working in-store planning to working at the D&D building. I had a detour where I actually worked full-time at my family business. I was at Jones Apparel Group when I was doing store planning, and I'd been there for a couple of years, and I realized I wasn't going to get where I wanted to go, and I had an opportunity to go to grad school. So I went, I got my master's in English and creative nonfiction. And, my family was wonderful enough to say, hey, while you're doing that, work for us. We'll give you flexible hours. You can go to classes as you need to, that you don't have to, worry about that. And it was amazing. So that's what I did. And I wound up working with my family business longer than I had initially planned. Someone left and I stepped into a larger role, and I was wearing all the hats as you do. I love working with my parents. I'm very close with my family. And we, as a group, like to joke that my dad, you go to Tom's College of Knowledge. And I have a master's from there as well. So I got a front row seat to the AEC industry. We worked with construction, doing storage containers and office trailers. We also worked with residential. We had a lot of homeowners who came to us, and they needed we had special language for them. Speaking of brand voice, we had a brand voice for there, it was very straightforward. It was approachable. We were confident. We were knowledgeable. And that really landed with people. But then for homeowners, we would adjust our tone. And I'll get into my definitions for that in our next part. But, we would say to them, you want a box, it's clean, it's painted, it's vented, you feel good putting your personal items in it. You don't have to cover your couch when you put it in. So I got to know a lot of that industry. And like I said, serving the different facets. And we worked with television and film as well. So it really gave me a deeper understanding into that side of the logistics, the supporting roles who are working with the architects and the engineers and the designers. And I really saw it as such an important spot in that ecosystem. And so it was great working there. But eventually, I'd gone to school for marketing. I wanted to be doing marketing, and there just was not enough of a role. My dad had done such a great job of setting up the business that they constantly had many, many long-term clients. And then you were regularly getting referrals and new people coming in. It really was not a need for me to be marketing their business per se. And so I was looking for jobs, and I interviewed in a whole bunch of different industries. But I find architecture and interior design to be the most welcoming family of people, especially at the small firm entrepreneurial level. And I interviewed at the D&D Building. And so it was to work literally for the building. So each of the Cohen Design Centers, which there are 4 of them, have their own marketing department. And for whatever reason, the New York office is the only one who doesn't have to charge additionally, last I heard, I don't know, it's been a while, for their services. And so we got to basically be a boutique marketing and event planning agency for the building. So for 18 floors, 130 showrooms, we got to help them. And, we would help them plan email newsletters, and we would do events. And we did, 2 major markets every year. We did a spring market and a fall market. And it was usually 2 to 3 days of full programming, keynotes, interior designers and other people in the industry. And it was, heads of brands and C-suite executives who were coming in to talk to their audience about the latest offerings or, different industry trends. So once I started doing that, I was hooked. I fell in love with architecture and interior design, and it was such a perfect home, for my efforts with branding and marketing. And that's really where the idea for Brainstorming the Castle was born. I started having, different marketing execs and company people coming in to visit the showroom, and they'd want to take me to lunch. And so I used to joke that for the price of a chicken salad sandwich, you could get a marketing plan, sometimes just for the showroom. And then sometimes, they would take that and apply it larger scale to their overall business. And people were asking me, when are you going to go into business for yourself? And I wasn't ready yet, but I was there. I had a really incredible boss that I worked with while I was there. And she said to me, you're going to be in this role for 2 years. You're not going to stay longer. I don't want you to stay longer. I want you to come in. I want you to learn everything there is to learn. And then I want you to go on. You're going to pick what brand you're going to go work for. And that's going to be your choice, basically. It wasn't quite like that, but it was definitely pretty much the path that I was on.
What a great approach from a boss, right? Because so often you think they're going to train you and they want you to stay there forever, right? And when you leave, they're almost, upset that you've left, betrayed that you've left. And in fact, she set you up to not only thrive in the position that you have, but with the freedom and the flexibility to go out on your own whenever you were ready.
Exactly. And while I was there, I got to find the brand voice for the building. I got to set the digital marketing strategy. I grew their Instagram at the time, I think it was 2014, from 2,200 to over 13,000 followers in about a year and a half. I take a very holistic approach to brand voice strategy and copy, and so much of it is informed by the fact that I have worn those other hats. I've done speech writing. I wrote a speech for Charles Cohen of Cohen Brothers, for one of our Stars of Design dinners. And it was a fantastic experience, getting those notes and helping infuse the voice of the building into what he was saying. So that was incredible. And when it was time to leave there, I saw an opening at Schumacher Company. They're over 125 years old fabric company, but they're always innovating. Their textiles. They also own Patterson Flynn. They purchased Backdrop since I left the paint company. And when I was there, I did event planning and I did a lot of copywriting as well. I wrote all their copy for the new collections, and I worked under the creative director there, another incredible mentor, Dara Caponegro, and I reported to her, and I reported to our COO as well, and our CEO. I had a couple of bosses there, but Dara was really my mentor, and she is that way to everyone that works there. She is completely accessible, and it's a real gift. And one of the biggest takeaways from there was don't reinvent the wheel. And this is something that I tell to small firm owners all the time. I'm like, you're already doing so much. Don't reinvent the wheel. You're on a podcast, great. Take that recording and pull all your social media captions for the next month from that. Take it and use it as a blog post, do all these things. And so again, I was there for a couple of years and I got to relaunch their Patterson Flynn brand. We rebranded it while I was there and we did all of the messaging around that. And then when I looked up the ladder, I was like, I don't want any of these roles. I love these people. I respect these people, but this isn't what I want to do. I kept in the back of my mind, really not that far back, but I was always thinking of my role at the D&D and how I got to help all those different brands and how I got to meet with all those different designers and how I made so many friends who were designers and they would say to me, can I pick your brain about this? And I was like, yeah, sure. What can I do to help support your business? Like, you've got so much going on. Let me give you the view at 30,000 feet when it comes to marketing. So I left and I started my own business. And that's how we got here.
When was that?
That was 2018.
Okay. So doing it for quite a while now on your own. Been doing it for a long time, but now on your own.
Yes.
Serving architects, interior designers, brands in the industry. So what do you do? Let's start at the basics. What do you do at Brainstorming the Castle? And you have to answer the question about the name.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You're going to have to do that too.
Of course. It's so funny because I was going to say, to reference the Breakfast Club, in the simplest of terms, in the most convenient of definitions, brands hire me to help figure out how to talk to their audience. Okay. So that's the basic way to say it. If you really want to get into, then I say that might look like a small firm or entrepreneur architect who is comfortable speaking to other architects, but is not comfortable speaking to their audience. And so they do that ArchiSpeak on their website.
Right. And that's a lot of us.
Yes. It's something that I love to figure out with people. So sometimes I come in to completely just custom write the website copy, but other times I come in just to edit it. People, they have the right idea. It's just that they're not using that right voice to speak to their audience. So we sit down and we really take that holistic look at their business. And I always say to them, are you working with a coach? Are you working, within a community? Are you using a social media planner? Who are the other players in this equation? And how do we get all of us on the same page? And if it's internal, how do we get that buy-in from them so that everyone's invested and everyone has the same message about the brand and we're all using the same voice to talk about it? Sometimes this also looks like people will bring me in. A lot of interior designers are hearing a lot of shoulds. This is somewhat true with my architects, not as much. They seem to be a little better about resisting the shoulds. But I know that a lot of people say to me, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And I said, let's come up with a brand strategy and a messaging strategy that's going to attract those right fit clients. You're getting so many referrals and you spend half the time saying, this actually doesn't work that I want. And then you take it on and it takes more time. Or someone who's very good-naturedly sending you referrals. And they were like, well, this is what you do. You're a writer. So I thought you'd want to, write this blog post for them. And it's like, well, actually, it's not what I do. So I'm looking to help people with their strategy or write strategic copy for them. I met with someone recently and I said to them, that's actually not what I do. And she said, oh my gosh, I have to stop sending those people to you. But it's that referral source, communicating your message to them, having that brand voice. It's not just for the end user. It's not just for the commercial client or whoever you're talking to. It's not just that. It is also for anyone who you're speaking to. You've got to be using that brand voice and you've got to be staying true to that message so that you don't spend half your time weeding out work you don't want or taking on work you don't want because you feel like you should. So that's something else that I help people with, and marketing executives as well. For bigger firms or for brands serving the A&D industry, a lot of times I'm tapped in as someone who is a wordsmith because, they have a very capable marketing team, but they don't have someone who's a writer. And so they need someone who understands all the different cogs that make up their machine, but they need them to execute a different aspect of it because they're more visual or they're more conceptual.
On this podcast, we talk a lot about brand, right? Because it's a big piece of what I advocate is that architects must focus on their brand, because you have a brand whether you are talking about it, whether you're creating it yourself or not, right? It's what people think about you. When they hear your name, they have an image in their head and they have an idea of what you do and who you are. And if that's not coming from you, it's coming from somewhere else that you don't have control over. And so when you specifically talk about brand voice, how does that tie into the overall brand strategy?
So I love that question. And I would like to thank you personally for the emphasis that you put on brand, because it's so important. And like you always say, you're not taught the business in architecture school. And I know you also put a big emphasis on ideal client, which I also really appreciate. And brand voice and ideal client, all of these things, they're tools. They're not mandates. They are tools to make your life easier, to make business, simpler. I shouldn't say easier. It simplifies things so that there are less distractions. So many of my clients, as I mentioned, are visual. So when they think about their brand, they're thinking about their logo, they're thinking about their colors, they're thinking about, the experience of the website. So what are all of those things without words? They're a picture book. Picture books are great, but they're not going to convey as clear of a message as if they had words. So your brand voice is your voice wherever you're talking about your business. Okay. So that could be your website. That could be in the digital space, whether that's in a community or if you're doing social media marketing or anywhere you're showing up, but also in one-on-one emails, in newsletters. Anywhere you're using your voice to talk about your business, that's your brand voice, right? And so you want to think about, what are the qualities of my brand voice? With everyone that I work with, I say, let's come up with a brand voice statement. As a company, Entre Architect is, therefore, our voice should sound. And we list all the characteristics. We define each characteristic. And then we talk about the do's and don'ts. Right? So as a brand, I think vulnerability is really important, because if I'm going to work with a company, so many small firm and entrepreneur architects, their business is their heart. It's their life. So if I'm going to get buy-in from them, I need to be vulnerable with them and I need to share my own experiences. Now, vulnerability is an interesting word because some people could take that and run with it and it could turn into TMI. Right? It could get super
We've
personal.
witnessed that right here on the show.
Yeah. So you're like, well, how do I create the do's and don'ts of that, right? So we do want to share personal anecdotes. We always also want to tie it back to a business experience. We want to tie it back to how it relates to the brand, how it can be applied to their own business. We don't want to just start sharing personal stories that could be, inappropriate for work or, that's the other end of the spectrum, but also could just make people feel like you're talking about yourself and not them. So that's another don't, right? So I try to create those parameters for people when we're creating brand voice statements so that when they are going to write something for their business, they can look back at it as a refresher. But also if they're hiring someone else, whether that's going to be on their team or they're hiring a contractor to say, write all their social media posts, they can hand that brand voice statement to them and say, this is the definition of our brand voice. I need you to keep everything you're writing within these parameters. Or it's just you're sitting there with yourself and you're trying to switch from your own voice to your business's voice, which oftentimes is very different. And you can say, oh, right. Okay. So these are the things that I want to keep in mind. And after you've written it, you've done a brain dump, you can say, am I hitting all these points? Am I making sure that it sounds like this? And then I tell people your brand voice is what's always true, right? So you want to be clear, you want to be knowledgeable, you want to be a little bit vulnerable, but then your tone is going to be flexible based on where you're talking. So generally, like my website is my most formal version of my voice. It is a tone that I would use at a networking mixer. It's a tone that I would use, when I'm speaking to an audience, like I'm going to be at Team Cam in October, looking forward to that. And that's going to be a different voice than I use on social media. So when I hop onto Instagram, I don't post a lot. But when I hop on and I do a story, I'm much more casual. I'm speaking extemporaneously. So yes, I'm talking about business, but I'm going to be a little more fast and loose with my contractions and things like that, whereas I'm going to use good sentence structure on my website because I'm a copywriter. But then when I'm speaking on Instagram, I can use a tone that's a little more conversational, colloquial, that's going to be a little less formal. And so those are the same things that I try to define for clients. Because brand voice, Mark, it's a telephone, right? You're on one end and your audience is on the other. And brand voice is the phone line. Without it, you could get lost. Your audience could get lost. If you're a really traditional architect, maybe you want to think about it as the through line. I have a great client in Canada who, la partie is so important to them. And it's that we talk so much about that through line. And the brand voice makes sure that you're not getting lost in your arca-speak and you're not, getting so excited about what you're doing that you're totally losing who you're talking to. But it's also making sure that you are addressing your audience in a way that they are going to receive what you're saying. You're going to talk about things in terms of benefits to them. You're going to talk about things using language that makes sense to them. And that might not be how you normally talk about your business, but it's going to be how you talk about it with the people that you are trying to bring into the fold.
Let's take a quick break to say thank you to our sponsors for their support of this episode. As an architect or firm owner, you might find yourself swamped with drawings that take up most of your day, leaving you with little time to manage your business. MGS Global Group can lighten your load by handling all of your drafting and rendering needs. Their experienced team of architects and designers can convert your schematic designs into DDs and CDs with minimal supervision. With expertise in industry-leading tools like Revit, ArchiCAD, and more, MGS is the perfect partner for managing your project spikes and urgent tasks. They work as an extension of your team and follow your standards to ensure the quality and accuracy of your drawings. Having served sole practitioners, small firms, and publicly traded companies since 2008, MGS guarantees you get the help you need right when you need it. Visit mgsglobalgroup.com and book your free consultation today. That's mgsglobalgroup.com. ARCAT's Spec Wizard is the tool that will help you save time writing specifications. Going through the manufacturer's specification line by line to find the right product leads to frustration and errors, and that's where Spec Wizard comes in. It's a free, patented tool that allows you to select products and options error-free and generate a 3-part specification in minutes. Go to arcat.com, that's ARCAT.com, and try Spec Wizard today. Please visit our sponsors today and thank them. Thank them for supporting you, the EntreArchitect community. I can imagine that without focusing on developing a brand voice, you become very inconsistent, right? One of the keys of a successful brand is consistency, right? That when you write an email or whether you're speaking to a potential client or you're developing something for your website, every time we sit down to do it, we're like starting over from the beginning. And then, it's great, but it's not consistent with everything else that you've created. So what are some of the key elements for making sure that a brand voice is clear and consistent and engaging?
Yes, I always say consistency, clarity, and character, 100%. So one of the easiest ways to do that, and this is something that I include in the brand voice guides, is a word bank. I mean, if that doesn't sound like the most basic thing.
Yeah. Which words are we actually going to use?
Right. And not only that, but you want to establish which words we're going to use, which words we're not going to use. And when we are using written words, how are we using them? Are we hyphenating? Are we not hyphenating? Are we using contractions? Are we not using contractions? But consistency, coming up with those words and those turns of phrase that you regularly use to talk about your business, it's going to help things stick in the mind of your audience. Additionally, let's say I love to create bios and like an elevator pitch in people's brand voice guide. So they have something that they can always go back to. If that is always the same or slightly adjusted with tone, like we were just talking about, for the audience of, let's say you're a speaker at a conference, you want the tone to be more formal, but if it's in a community bio, right? So we're in the Entre Architect community, we have our bio there. It might be you're talking to, your fellow architects, or you're talking to allies. There it can be using a little more language that's going to be familiar to that audience. So again, that's going to create that consistency. People see that message over and over again. I think when social media became so popular and people were, it was Facebook and it was Twitter and it was Instagram and LinkedIn, people were like, oh, we can't have the same thing on all of those platforms. And now I feel like we've come around 180 and it's like, no, you want to have the same message. So it is consistent on all of those platforms because you have to break through the noise. It's like hearing a familiar voice. Even if you're not hearing me audio right now, when you read my writing, my sister always says, she's like, I always know it's you. You could hand me 3 essays and I would know which one is you in my creative. And so that's what you want, because that consistency, it's a touchstone, know, like, trust. How can you trust someone if they're not consistent? If every time you talk to someone, they're using different phrases, it sounds like they don't know themselves. It sounds like you can't trust them because they don't even know who they are. And so that helps you to bring people in. And like I was saying before, with don't reinvent the wheel, by repurposing content and by repurposing statements that you've made and ideas that you really believe in, that creates that consistency. So it's a time saver that also creates consistency, which is a huge benefit. And the more consistent you are, the clearer you can be. Because every time you say it, you can tinker with it a little. You can refine it. That's how I got to that brands hire me to figure out how to talk to their audience. Because you say different things and you realize where people are getting hung up, right? So if you're consistent in your messaging and every time you say, I'm a brand voice strategist who works with architects and interior designers, people are like, oh, you're an interior designer? And I'm like, no, that's not it. But, so you see where people are getting caught up, or they say, oh, you're a copywriter? Wow. So you're an attorney? Not that kind of copyright. So, you come up with different things. And if you practice active listening, you can really see what's going on with your audience when they're hearing you too.
How do you deliver that brand voice to a client and for that client to be able to distribute it to their team so the team is also consistent?
I love this question. So I am in love with my deliverable. It's not pretty. Don't get me wrong. If you're someone who's a real Canva user, you're going to be a little disappointed in the aesthetics. But I create a Google Doc. It's a really beautifully outlined, clear, easy to understand Google Doc. And it's broken down into the separate sections. You've got your core message, you've got your mission statement, your vision statement, your core values. And then we've got, your USP, because that's so incredibly important. You got your value proposition, your brand statement, and of course, I have the grammar and vocabulary, which includes our word bank, but it also includes, are we using punctuation? Are we using exclamation points? Do we ever use multiple exclamation points? Online, are we using emojis? I have a lot of brands who have no guidelines around emojis, and then they'll have a new hire come in and take over comments or take over captions, and all of a sudden, all these emojis are popping up, and I'm like, okay, let's add that section. So, these are all sections of the brand voice guide. So it starts with a questionnaire. And then from the questionnaire, we do a deep dive where we really talk through things. I make sure I'm understanding everything. And then I put everything into the different sections. It's like a matching game. So I know what the sections of the brand voice guide are. And then I craft your answers for each of those based on the questionnaire answers. And so when I hand it to people, they realize how familiar it was all along. But now they have these beautifully packaged ways of saying it, both internally and externally. So I like to tell people, use it as part of the training. When you're onboarding a new team member, give them the brand voice guide. Give them that buy-in. If you have team members who want to get involved in that meeting, a lot of times I will conduct the deep dive meeting and I'll say, let's have your team members in for the first hour of it. And then decision makers only in the second hour. But it's like you get that buy-in from people so that when they see that deliverable, they're like, oh, I know what section this is. This is great. You said this was going to be there, and they can go back to it. And so if they are, representing the company somewhere and they need some boilerplate copy about it, they pull it right from there. If they're in charge of any of the communication, this needs to be their go-to guide. This is their user manual for communicating. So they're going to take all of the different bios for your different profiles and things from that. And so it's all right there. Like if you're in sales and you need to copy and paste some information about the history of the company, let's look back to that. Let's talk about how we talk about that. If you have a parent company, and that's very popular with a lot of brands who then launch another line, they want to have it very clear. Is it a Brainstorming the Castle company? Is it a part of the Entre Architect family? How are we talking about that? Let's make sure it's clear every single time anyone in your organization talks about it, they are a member of this family. Or let's give everyone the tools that they need to say, oh God, I know just how to say that. I don't have to go to the owner. I don't have to go to my manager. I can go to this guide and it's right there for me. And I even use examples because people say, a lot of people, even fellow copywriters will say to me, well, how do you get people to use it? Because a lot of these deliverables, they just collect dust, which drives me nuts. I say, if my brand voice guide is languishing on a share drive, I have not done my job.
Right. Exactly. It should be used every day.
Yes, exactly. And so I include examples of calls to action for newsletters, examples of calls to action on your website, or different ways to introduce a new product line or a service. All of those examples, I say to you, what do you need? What kind of swipe copy do you need? What are the terms that you're always using? What are the types of phrases you constantly need? Let's include exactly how to create one of those. Or this is the basic one we always go back to. Let's put that in there. And so that's all in the deliverable. And so is the ideal client avatar. And more recently, something that I've been doing, especially for my architects and interior designers, is I create a referral avatar. Where are your referrals coming from? And how can we craft our voice and our message to let them be our advocate?
So you give the language to the referral so they say the right words when they're referring you.
Right. And we really outline them because sometimes if we're looking for new opportunities with that, we say, this is what the ideal referral looks like. So base everything off of this, and then here's some messaging and how you can adapt the brand's message to them.
What are some challenges that you face when defining a brand voice? What are some of the things that we should make sure we don't do?
Well, I think that it can be very easy to go to comparison, to look at, here's a firm that we want to be like, and let's look at their core values.
Steal someone else's voice.
Yes. And because if it's not your voice, it's going to sound like it. It's going to sound like you're impersonating someone. And that's never good. But also, I think not fleshing things out. So let's say you went to another firm and you said, those are their core values. Great. They're going to be ours. So you get this list of core values. And that's something when I first started, I used to say that was sufficient because of course it's their core values. They know what they are. No more. So now part of the deliverable is the list of core values, a definition of each value. Then we do an abstract of that value in terms of the larger business, right? What does it look like internally? What does it look like externally? And then we do in practice, this looks like very specific, concrete examples of what that core value looks like in the day-to-day business. And so don't overlook that. If you're going to take the time to create brand core values, take the time to flesh them out for people. That's that quote. The biggest problem with communication is that you think that it's taken place. I'm butchering it, but that's the biggest failure in communication is if you think that it's taken place and it hasn't. You need to be clear about these things. Don't expect that anyone knows that. When we're business owners, it's very easy to keep things in the lockbox. I work very well with people who have a lockbox mentality, people who are like, I don't even know how to turn this thing on. And I work so well with those people because I'm like, I'm going to extract that. Because most of the time, they don't want their team to have to come to them for everything, but they don't know how to not make that so. They don't know how to put it into something like a brand voice guide where they can say, hey, can you reference that? Or if someone sends them, a deliverable or an email and says, hey, is this good to go? They can say, could you reference that section of the brand voice guide? Because it's not. And that'll make it real clear why it's not. So can you review that and then send it back to me? And so I think that making sure that, like I said, those use cases that I was referencing before, making sure that when we're working together, we address all of those, right? Or whoever you're working with for your brand voice. Think about all the different times you lose time to coming up with messaging, or you send out messaging and it didn't hit with your audience. It didn't land. Think about all those instances. Make a big old brain dump of it. Put it up on a whiteboard, however you need to do it. Talk it through, use voice to text, whatever it is. Come up with all those scenarios and then figure out how you can address that in the brand voice guide.
Something that's very tempting and is becoming very common is AI. Right? You're seeing AI text and you can tell, right? When you're reading it, you're like, "Poop, AI wrote that. That's ChatGPT talking." So my question is, first of all, obviously don't do that, but how can you leverage AI, right? Because AI is becoming part of everything that we're doing. So where should we be using AI and where should we absolutely not be using AI?
Okay, so I just went to an amazing IDS by me, our local chapter, had Jenna Gajdusek in to talk about AI for interior designers. And I love AI for organizing my thoughts. I'm a verbal processor. I have nothing but ideas. I have notebooks upon notebooks of ideas. And so if I can dump a whole bunch of copy into AI and have it organize my thoughts, that I think is a huge value. But if you don't have a defined brand voice and you just let AI speak for you, there's going to be problems. One of the visual tools for AI, Jenna says they have a faucet problem. So you ask them to create a kitchen and all of a sudden you look at the kitchen and there's 6 faucets. And so you don't want to have a verbal faucet problem. And so I say, use AI to organize your thoughts. If you're not a writer, if you're not someone who loves verbal or written communication, use it for that purpose. Or have it come up with questions to ask you. Say, I'm prepping for a talk on this. What are some questions I should address? Great. Let it come up with prompts for you. I love it for that. So that's one way to use it. Another way to use it is, so when you get into brand voice and you get into that larger plan, right? Like I said, I take a very holistic approach. So if I'm writing website copy for someone, then they'll say when they're working with their web designer, can you do all of the alt text for my images? I say, I can, but that's not going to be very cost efficient for you. You know who can do it? Probably for free is ChatGPT. You can put that image into ChatGPT and say, write alt text for this. And then based on what you know about your audience, because you've done your ideal client avatar, you can swap out the words in that alt text. And you can say, I don't want to say modern farmhouse. I don't want to say that this is just a commercial building. I want to say this is a co-working space. I want to say this is a co-working space for healthcare professionals. Or I want to say this is a co-working space for creatives, and so you can pepper that in. But AI will generate those original sentences for you. And you don't need that much. It can create the page titles and the meta descriptions for your website. You know how many people leave those opportunities on the table? There are all these places where it's like, you don't necessarily need to pay someone like me to write that copy. It's not on-page copy. It's your page title. You see it when you hover over the tab, when who has enough tabs or as few tabs open, you can actually see what's on there. Not me. So it's up there. It's what comes up on that search engine results page. So you want it to convert. You want it to be something that's going to, your audience says, oh, great. So the copy in blue on that search engine results page says, Long Island architect specializing in residential or high-end residential, whatever it is, great. And then that meta description underneath goes into how you work with, maybe it goes into how you work with contractors, or it talks more about how you favor the homeowner or whatever it is. And then that gets you that click through. So all of these things are important to think about, but let AI start it for you. So many people, we stop before we get started because it seems like so much, because it is so much. You're doing so much for your business. You're just trying to get the jobs done. So you're not supposed to be a marketer on top of it. But if you want to come to someone who is a marketer and you want to save yourself some time and some money and you've already got some direction, you can do that with AI. AI will get you there. AI will organize you. So that's what I say to use it
Yeah,
for.
very good response to that. Because I think everybody is tempted to just make AI do everything now.
Right. And you can't fall into that trap.
Right. It's dangerous.
You won't stand out. There's no way you're going to stand out from your competition.
People know. When they read it and they see it, they know.
Yes, even if you don't think they do.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, Kim, I want to ask my final question. I'm really interested in your answer to this question. What is one thing that a small firm architect could do today to build a better business for tomorrow? What's the one thing they should leave this conversation with?
Commit to monitoring your messaging. It's really that simple. It's not easy, but it's that simple. You have to look at what you're saying and who you're saying it to. You want to make sure the ears of the right people are hearing it, whether that's your actual right fit client or the referral sources who can get you in front of them. You want to look at what your message is, and you want to make sure that the plan for that is going to have the voice clear, have the tone, be the right tone for the platform and the audience. And you want to see what's working. If you're not monitoring your messaging, how are you ever going to figure out whether or not it's working? I love Archibiz's approach to the board meeting. Like that board meeting is, it's my love language right there. That is speaking to me. I know they want you to do it monthly, and I think you should do it monthly, but start doing it quarterly. Get started, do it. Just look at your messaging, because we are working with longer lead times here, right? We're not selling a product that it's like add to cart and purchase. People are looking into these things for a long time. They have budgets that they're working with, right? There's a line item that is defined in December that, they're going to, for the whole next year, be like, how are we using this? Which firm are we going to hire? And how are we going to invest that money? It's a long lead time. So you want to make sure that you're staying top of mind with your messaging, that people are responding to it, and you have to make sure that it's working for you and delivering the client that you want and the project mix that you want. It's not just about the ideal client. It's also about the project mix. People will say to me, they want to get all these likes, they want to get all these vanity metrics. And I'm like, how many clients do you actually want each year? What do you need to do with your messaging? It might only be 8 clients. I had an interior designer the other day who was like, I need 4 clients every year. And I was like, that's fantastic. Where are we going to get those 4 clients? Let's talk about your message in that space. And that's what you have to do. You have to commit to monitoring that message and seeing how it's performing. Tweak it as you need to tweak it. Maybe you boost things, maybe you adjust it, maybe you're going to more networking events. But if you commit to monitoring that message and checking on the effectiveness of it, it's a super boost. But if you're not monitoring it, who knows? You're just throwing stuff at the wall to see if it sticks, and you're wasting time, you're wasting resources, you're wasting your own energy. I want more for people than that. Architects are creating beautiful things. They should have more time to do that. And if you can just stick to your message, create an evergreen message. Maybe there's a seasonal one that you throw out there, but if you stick to monitoring those things, it is going to help you exponentially in getting the right kind of clients and the right projects that you want.
Her name is Kimberley Healy. The company is Brainstorming the Castle. The website is brainstormingthecastle.net. You can go there and learn all about what Kim does. You can go ask her any additional questions. Before we leave, you didn't answer the question about the name. Where did the name come from? Was there an inspiration for the name?
Yes. So I'm a child of the 80s, and I am a huge fan of puns and of pop culture. So Brainstorming the Castle is a Princess Bride reference. Are you familiar?
I've never seen the movie, so I don't know.
Okay, so it's a fantastic movie. And in it, one of the characters says, have fun storming the castle. And I think that sometimes when we are coming up with our brand strategy, we can take ourselves a little too seriously and we can make it very heavy. And you should have fun storming the castle. You really want to just come at it as a brainstorm, as a great problem to solve. What you do is what you're passionate about. You should enjoy talking about it. You should enjoy getting that message out there, and you should feel connected to it and confident in it. And so that's what I want for the people that I work with.
All right. Brainstormingthecastle.net. Kim, thank you. Thank you for dedicating your entire focus on us, architects and interior designers, the A&D industry. We all know that what you're talking about are things that we need. So thank you for doing the work that you do. And thanks for coming by here and sharing your knowledge at Entre Architect Podcast.
I consider it an honor and a privilege. I do not take it lightly when people trust me with this. You're only as good as your word. And so I really don't take it lightly. And I appreciate you giving me this platform to talk about it. I love helping people, and I love what you do, which is helping people. It is so important and it is so needed. Community is one of my core values. And when I first became aware of you, I was like, he gets it. He's the guy. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you. And I look forward to hanging out with you in Nashville at the conference.
Yes.
I'm going to be a speaker. So we're going to deep dive into brand voice. So looking forward to it.
I can't wait.
We'll see you then.
Thanks, Mark.
If you liked this episode of Entre Architect Podcast, please share a link to this episode with a friend. Either just click the share button or highlight the URL and send the link to this episode with a friend, because that's how Entre Architect has grown to serve thousands more architects just like you throughout the 10 plus years of Entre Architect. That's how we've grown, architect to architect. So I would love for you to share this episode and all the episodes with one friend every week. We'd love that. And thank you to our sponsors for this episode. We don't have an episode if there's no sponsors. So thank you to our sponsors. Links to those sponsors, which you should go visit and click, and all the resources that we discussed today for this specific episode, they are all available at entrearchitect.com/podcast. Every episode that we've recorded is there, entrearchitect.com/podcast. Go click the links to the sponsors and say hello. Entre Architect is a member of the Gable Media Podcast Network. You should go visit that at gablemedia.com. That is the next evolution of interactive media and resources for the AEC community. You can now earn continuing education credits for listening to select episodes of this podcast, Entre Architect Podcast. Yes, AIA CEUs for listening to a podcast. It's there, and many other podcasts are there as well, and you can listen to all of them and get credit. Learn more about our program, Gable Members Program, at the gablemedia.com/members website. That's GABL media.com/members. And if you are a small firm architect, join us today at Entre Architect Network. That is the worldwide organization for small firm entrepreneur architects. If you own your own architecture firm, you are an entrepreneur architect. You are an Entre Architect. With weekly live group business coaching, we have business coaching there, monthly live business training with AIA CEUs, 2 a month, so 24 AIA credits per year, including 12 of those are HSWs. We have them in the membership. Business resources, all the resources you need to run your business, special session webinars, mastermind groups, and a thriving community of small firm architects just like you. Hundreds of architects are there waiting for you to join. So we provide the support and encouragement you need to succeed as a small firm architect. I know that you haven't been trained as a business person when you launched your firm. That's what we do. Come learn how to run a business at Entre Architect Network. And today you can go join right now for free for 30 days at this link, entrearchitect.com/30 days will give you free 30 days for membership. Go check it out at entrearchitect.com/30 days, and I will see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of Entre Architect Podcast. My name is Mark R. LePage, and I want you to remember 3 words: love, learn, share. Have a great day.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark Arlepage, founder of Entre Architect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.